Hey YouTube, Joe Walker here at Def Digits Guitar Lessons, and I want to show you some things that you can do over a funk type solo. Little thirds that you can grab like that, in addition to anything that you might be using from scales or arpeggios or single note lines. We can grab some little 2-note chords. We call them double stops when you do those on the guitar, because it's not quite a chord if it's not 3 full notes. Double stop means you're stopping the strings, stopping 2 strings at the same time. So we get that kind of thing. I'll be focusing on thirds and sixths that you can use in the key of C if you're playing sort of a C dominant groove like that. That's not quite major. It's not fully major, but it's not like you can't use the minor pentatonic over that too. You can. So you've got options to use major pentatonic or minor pentatonic, which is very common to see this kind of tonality in a tune. So we can use a lot of these double stops that might cross over between those two. So let me show you first. Let's orient ourselves around this 8th fret. If you know the minor pentatonic in this position, we're in this realm right here. So we've got that root down there. We also have one here, which is more useful to focus on when we're playing the high notes. A root here and a root up there to orient yourself around the notes that we might be playing in between. So we're going to start with this move. There's our root. We're going to hit 8th fret on the G and B string at the same time, and then hammer on to the B string 9th fret. That's the 5 that we're playing there, and that's the flat 3 hammering onto the 3. So we have flat 3 and 5, and then hammer on so you get 3 and 5. And that's just straight out of the major chord, 1, 3, and 5. So if you're playing around with some of the notes from minor pentatonic, that's a pretty good way to put a little punctuation on the end of it. Could be a hammer-on, or you could pick both of those. But I would only recommend going in that direction, from the flat 3 to the 3. Going from the 3 to the flat 3 sounds like we've just made something unstable. Like that. Doesn't really have the punctuation that does. So that other thing I just grabbed was the 10th fret on both of those same strings. So now we can extend this little phrase to 3 double stops. And let's throw in one more. So I just went up here to fret 12 and 11, and then down to fret 10 and 10. And you can use any finger for all of this. And then 8 and 8 onto 9 and 8. So 4 double stops in a row. We get this one, 12 and 11, 10, 10, 8, 8, 9, 8. So you can mess around with those 4. The only ones that really sort of have to be in order are those last 2. The 8, 8 to the 9, 8. Doesn't really go the other way, but we can mess around with the rest of them as much as we want. We can also do what I just did there, where you don't resolve with that hammer on. So we've got that one, that one, that one. You can mess with those 3. And if you throw that hammer on in there, you're distinctly making it. Now we've gone from the twisted in-between sound to now fully major when you hit that hammered note at the end there. So that's your little vocabulary of little chords that you can grab, double stops, around your low root, around your 8th fret root. Down here with your 5th fret root, there's a C on the 3rd fret of the 5th string root, 3rd fret of the 5th string. That's where we are. That's where this major chord, this bar chord would be. we can get the same sort of double stops in here. And this sounds a little bit different. It's oriented around this root, and you've got fret 5 and 5 and 3 and 3. It's the same technique that you just used up here with fret 10 and 10 and 8 and 8. This has a different kind of tonality to it. So mess around with those two as well. This is 1 and 3 scale degrees, and this is flat 7 and 2. So this is specifically putting the flat 7 in there, which I guess we saw that up here when we did this move. Next, let's see, let's go to some sixths. Those are all thirds that we've covered so far. If we go to the sixths, let's see, we can do this one up here. Let's start with the high one, and then we'll go down to lower ones. So we've got fret 9 and 8. Fret 9 on the G string, fret 9 on the G string, fret 8 on the high E string. Sometimes I'll play this with a pick and a finger. Sometimes I'll mute the string in between and strum through like that. So if you see me doing it different ways, it can be done different ways depending on the context. So we've got 9 and 8, then we're going to move up and get 10 and 10, then 12 and 12. And you can go back and forth between those again. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff you can use here that's double stops in addition to the scales that you might be playing. So try to mix and match those. Play a little bit of the scale and then some of the double stops. Let's go down and do the same thing down here. Actually, let's stay up in this position. I've got one more thing to show you. We can do those same sixths on the D string and the B string. So get the 10th fret on the D, 10th fret on the B, then move it down to 8 and 8. This is a very, very common sound to hear in the blues. If the bass is chugging along and you want to comp in a certain way that's not just like really ramming it home with "we're in the key of C," you can do something more subtle like that while the bass player and drums are going. And that's over again this 8th fret root. We're going up to 10 and back down to 8. Now down to the 5th string root on the 3rd fret, doing stuff around this area. We're going to get some sixths over here too. So we can get that same thing that we just did here on the D string and B strings. We can do that on the G string and E string on the 5th fret and the 3rd fret. So that's in addition to the other stuff that we had over here. We had those double stops on the G and B strings. I threw one in the middle there as well. Whenever you have double stops, thirds or sixths, moving in parallel like that, 2 frets apart, you can get the one in between. Same with when we did this. Next, let's look at the 6th. We can do the same thing again on the D string and B string, 5th fret and 3rd fret. And then resolve it down to 2nd fret and 1st fret. And that is an octave lower than what we were originally doing up here, what we started with. So that gives you lots to look at. Several ways to do double stops of thirds here and sixths here. And up here, when you're in this position, we've got thirds going and sixths. So obviously don't do them all at once like I just did. It's hard to make them sound musical like that. but throw them in the context of when you're soloing in that position. You might be doing minor pentatonic or major pentatonic or Mixolydian scale or just some lick that you know that's around those roots. You can grab some of those double stops as well to spice up your solos. That's it for today. Have fun. Thanks for watching. See you next time.